Vedant, I've spoken to your electrical sir. So he said he'll take a class on Tuesday during the EVS hour. So now all of you can join here. So yeah, we'll quickly start with the introduction to different kinds of energy resources today. I hope all other students will also join in due time, right? So today we'll be discussing about different forms of energy. So we all know that the entire life depends on the energy that we receive from different sources, right? Be it sunlight, be it electricity, right? We are invariantly dependent on all these sources of energy. There are major classifications that we see in the different kinds of energies that we use on a daily basis. So one kind of classification being renewable and non-renewable. So all of us are aware of this. The energy resources which can be renewed in a in a quick manner are called as renewable resources, right? And then non-renewable resources are those which cannot be renewed in a considerably shorter span of time, like our fossil fuels, right? The other kind of classification is conventional and non-conventional energy resources. So that is what we'll be dealing with according to our syllabus. So conventional sources are the ones that we use regularly, like electricity, right? Fossil fuels, solar energy, and non-conventional are the ones which are not used to a greater extent, like the tidal energy, nuclear energy, right? Hydrogen, which is also of late being seen as an alternate source of energy, right? So today in this class, we'll be discussing mostly about non-renewable resources in the beginning, right? So most of these non-renewable energy resources as are seen as an alternate sources of they're seen as alternate sources of energy compared to the conventional ones, which are mostly being extent, especially the fossil fuels. So we know that the statistics say that we'll run out of all the fossil fuels in another 30 years, right? So there is a need for us to find an alternate source of energy, and that is why a lot of these new concepts, a lot of these newer methods to generate energy are coming up, and these are called as non-conventional sources. So just give me a while. Can one of you please confirm if my screen is visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
All right. So we'll quickly start with the hydrogen fuel cells, right? So yeah, what are these fuel cell technologies? So this is basically a cleaner form of energy which converts hydrogen, basically generates electricity through chemical reactions, which majorly makes use of hydrogen, right? So there are a lot of these hydrogen enabled batteries that are coming up. There's a lot of research that is going on in this uh, field. So fuel cells are one of the major kinds of modes in which hydrogen can be converted into electricity, right? So the major benefits of fuel cells is that it is versatile. That is, the applications can be varied from automobiles to your household appliances. And coming to the environmental perspective, it is very environmental friendly because it is considered as one of the green forms of energy, because there's literally no pollution that is happening during the manufacturing process, as well as the duration when it's being used. And also the efficiency is proved to be pretty good. So they claim that the efficiency of these fuel cells are about 90%. So energy efficiency is also pretty high compared to other forms of energy, where most of the energy is lost during sorry yeah, most of the energy is lost while transporting it, or during other processes, right? And then also there are a lot of benefits while considering the flexibility of it, right? Right, you can use any kinds of uh, fuels like hydrogen. You can also use methanol and ethanol and other things, right? So but one of the major things here is the hydrogen. So there are different ways in which this hydrogen energy can be manufactured, right? So one is the chemical reforming process, another one is the electrolysis process, and the third one is the thermochemical process, right? So I'm rushing through here because most of you have to attend your competition, the poetry competition, right? All these processes are given here in detail. I have put in all the schematic diagrams. You can go through them in detail, and if you have any doubts, you can get back to us and we'll clarify them. And yeah, this is just for your extra reading, right? So you don't really have to go through all of this in detail. Just for your information, for you to understand what these processes are, I've put all of this in detail here, right? So yeah, so chemical reforming process. This is how the entire thing works, right? So again, not necessary for you to know all the equations and how it works, right? So basically, a process where steam is converted into electricity, right? Electrolysis is again another method wherein water is split into hydrogen and oxygen, and that hydrogen is in turn used to produce electricity, right? So yeah, this is the process of electrolysis. So yeah, why is it being given so much importance, right? So like I said, it is considered as one of the cleanest fuel forms, right? Fossil fuels are one of the major contributors of carbon dioxide and pollution, right? And any other forms, again, the efficiency becomes very less. So this is considered to be one of the cleanest and the most efficient forms of energy. And like we've already discussed, these are also one of the non-polluting forms of energy, and then also has a very high level of energy, right? So this is considered as the future energy resource for the humankind, right? So you can definitely read a lot about the hydrogen cells. These are very important and then very innovative things. Yeah. So yeah, applications. Fuel cells. They're used in cars. Sorry, they're used in cars. What is it happening? Yeah, and they can also be used in. Sorry, why is this moving like this? So the major application of these hydrogen cells, the fuel cells, is seen in cars of late, right? But there are a few issues here, which can be the storage issue, right? Because hydrogen is a combustive gas, so storing it in the vehicles is one of the major issues that they're facing, and also the delivery issues, right? So, like I said, since it is combustive, it becomes very difficult to transport it. So these are the major issues or disadvantages of hydrogen cells, right? So next
Ma'am,
we'll move on to nuclear energy. Yeah,
ma'am, what about the
yeah.
cost, ma'am? Cost of hydrogen.
The cost depending on the quantity, and it is definitely higher than any other conventional resources. But yeah, there could be ways which in which it can be made cost effective, and they are working on it. For now, it is expensive, right? That is also one of the major disadvantages, and that is why we're not seeing a lot of these hydrogen fuel powered batteries yet, right? And then moving on to the next one, we have nuclear power, right? So we all have already studied about the fission and fusion processes, right? So you might have studied it in your high school as well as your plus two. A very useful and again a very efficient way of generating power. Can you all please mute yourselves? I hear some noise. Yeah, thank you. So here the electricity or the power is majorly produced by the fission of uranium atoms, right? So like you can see a kilogram of uranium-235 releases about 18.7 million kilowatt hours of heat, right? So you can see the amount of electricity or the energy that can be produced here, right? So but here the only major disadvantage is that uranium is a natural resource that is available, and it's not available in every country. So the major disadvantage here is that uranium has to be imported, and which can be really expensive. So in India, coming to the Indian scenario of nuclear powers, we have a few real good nuclear power reactors which are tending to the electricity demand in our country, right? Can somebody name one of the nuclear power plants that we have in Karnataka itself? Anybody who's aware of
Kaiga.
it?
Kaiga.
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 Kaiga. Good. Any other nuclear power plants that you guys are aware of? Kaiga is one in Karnataka, right? So apart from that,
Kalpakkam.
Kalpakkam, right? Where is it? Any idea about that?
Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu.
Nuclear, yeah, correct. Anything else? Any other nuclear power plants that you are aware of?
Tarapur.
Sorry?
Tarapur, ma'am. Maharashtra.
Tarapur. Yeah, Tarapur is one more, right? And there is
Fukushima
one
reactor
given
Narora.
in
in
Rajasthan.
Ma'am,
Japan.
Narora, ma'am.
Yeah?
Narora.
Narora in Uttar Pradesh.
Ma'am, Tadapur in Maharashtra.
Yeah, Tarapur in Maharashtra. There's one in Gujarat as well. Does somebody know about it? Kakrapur.
Mundra.
Sorry?
Mundra, ma'am.
Where is Mundra?
Ma'am, Kakrapur, ma'am. In Gujarat.
Kakrapur, yeah. Kakrapur in Gujarat. Right. So yeah. So nuclear power, this, and I also have how the nuclear power plant works here, right? So majorly, all that you gotta know is it's because of the fission reaction of the uranium-235 molecules, right? So there are a little more details and statistics here that I've put up. You can go through this later, right? So the major disadvantages, or I would not call it a disadvantage, I would say a challenge, is the disposal of nuclear waste materials, right? So like we know, all these nuclear, the uranium is radioactive, right? So the waste that is generated from the nuclear power plants are radioactive. So the problem is about how to handle these waste materials, right? So most of the times they're dumped into oceans, or they're dumped deep in the ground. But again, we've heard about a lot of accidents that happen in these nuclear power plants, and most of the people who work in there, especially with the waste disposal, are prone to fatal diseases. So that is one of the major challenges in nuclear power plants, right? So the rest of the things, I think, are self-explanatory, and you can go through them, right? So all these are statistics. I'll skip that part. Right. So the next one, the next kind of energy that we'll be discussing today is the geothermal energy. So we all know that the center of the earth is very hot, right? And also there are some water resources, which are water resources in the deeper parts of earth, right? So because of the heat that is present in the center, the core of the earth, the water gets heated up and converts into steam, right? So that is seen as a potential to convert, that's seen as a potential source of energy, and that steam, which is really very hot, can be converted into electricity, right? So that is called as geothermal energy, right? Especially you've heard of these hot springs and the groundwater resources, right? So which are very hot, and they contain a humongous amount of energy in them, like the heat in them, and that heat is harvested and converted into electricity in the form of steam, right? So this is how it basically works, right? So when the ground becomes hot, they pass in water through that the steam, and then that in turn rotates the turbine. And I think I've missed the picture. Yeah, and the picture is not here. I'll add in later on. So that heat, the steam, is in turn in turn used to power the turbines, and the turbines in turn generate electricity, right? So this is about geothermal energy, right? So basically energy is harvested from the core, or the center of the earth. And then going on to the next one, which is biomass, right? So biofuels are seen as the future energy resources. So we've already heard of biomass a bit, right? So we have come across these smaller units, especially within the houses, wherein you use biogas for cooking and heating water and all of it. So what are the different kinds of fuels that we can use and that are considered as biofuels? That is what we'll be seeing here, right? So yeah, on a larger scale, biomass is not actually being used. So again, here there are some statistics, right? So what are the advantages of biomass? One, can be harvested, or can be generated using organic matter, right? So, and it can also be one of the ways to manage the organic waste that is available in your country, especially the sugarcane hay, and which will be composed later on to cellulose, and then that will be used as energy. The major drawbacks are that it can cause, if at all it is used in a commercial way in a larger scale, there is a fear that it can cause scarcity of food supplies, because most of the food here is being used to generate energy, right? So that is one of the major challenges here, as to maintain the balance between the food demand and the energy demand, right? So Yeah, there are more of details about it. You could go through this later, right? So, yeah, these are the major sources which are or crops that could be used as biofuel feedstock. That is the the raw material which is used to produce biofuels, soybeans, corn, right, sugarcane, algae, all of them can be used as uh, feedstock to generate electricity. Just give me a while, students. I'm getting a call. So this is the major classification of biofuels. So all the conventional biofuels which are directly available, right, like this sugar, vegetable oils, starch, which is readily available and can be used to generate power or energy, they're called as first generation biofuels. Second generation biofuels are the ones which have to be manufactured using the conventional ones like wood and straw and waste plastic, right? So they have to be converted into the cellulosic material and then have to be used. Basically, they generate the cellulose containing the chemicals from these materials and then use that as biofuels, sorry, to manufacture biofuels, right? And the third generation biofuels are mostly these algae and other marine algae, yeah, marine algae and other creatures, right? So these again are taken from their places again to the labs, and then they are grown there, and when they release these cellulosic material during their digestive processes, that is used for generation of power. So this is the basic classification of biofuels, right? So what are the major advantages of biofuels over the fossil fuels? So one, the major advantage is that they emit lesser amount of carbon dioxide and carbon monoxides compared to the fossil fuels, and like I said, they're renewable, right? And also they're biodegradable, like because all these are taken from organic matter, they're always biodegradable. So the management of these the waste materials becomes very easy, and also compared to other sorts of energy resources like the nuclear and all of them, these are comparatively much safer, right? So these are the major advantages of biofuels. And what are the common types of biofuels that we see, right? So we have bioethanol, and we also have biodiesel, biogas, and biobutanol. So we all know about biogas already, right? So I think most of us would have seen that arrangement in rural areas where they use biogas for cooking purposes. And then there's also biodiesel, which is being produced using soybeans and other materials, right? And we also have bioethanol, which is seen as a potential energy resource that can be used instead of diesel and petrol, right? In automobile sectors. Yeah. So these are some of the pictures that I've got. So I have detailed information about each one of these types of biofuels, and you can go through them later. So how are they produced, the entire manufacturing process? Again, you could just go through them in your leisure time, right? And biodiesel, again, it is seen as an alternative to the diesel fuel, the conventional diesel fuel, and it is majorly manufactured using vegetable oil and animal fats, right? So again, there is also biobutanol, right? So you can again go through the manufacturing processes here. And biogas, like I said, we already know about it. Majorly used for domestic purposes and is manufactured using wastes from the domestic purposes and manure. So this is how a biogas plant would look. So self-explanatory, most of the parts of the presentation, especially the manufacturing process. So I would not like to go about it in detail. And now Abhijit sir will continue with the conventional sources of energy. I'll just call Abhijit sir and then ask him to continue.
Yeah, I will take on now.
Yeah, you're there, sir? Yeah, okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll stop sharing so that you can share your screen, sir.
So, good morning, everyone. Are you able to see the screen now, students?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, we were discussing about the conventional and non-conventional sources of energy. Okay. So, the conventional sources of energy include mostly the exhaustible resources. Okay, like coal, petrol, diesel. Okay, now the world is slowly moving towards the non-conventional sources of energy like solar, tidal, wind. Okay, and before I begin, I will tell you that I will share the slides. Okay, and while I am delivering the lecture, please don't chat amongst yourself with everyone. Okay, so listen to the lecture with patience. We will complete the lecture by 10:20. Okay, so now just now, ma'am gave a glimpse of the non-conventional sources of energy. Now we will see what are the conventional sources of energy. Okay. So the conventional sources of energy, before that, you must understand that the energy is one of the important aspect of human activity. Okay. So So, with the progress of the industrial civilization, the sources became less and less important, and fossil fuels such as coal, lignite, petroleum, and natural gas began to play a vital role. Now, you know that before the industrial revolution, you know where the first industrial revolution took place? So, the industrial revolution first took place in the 18th century in Europe. Okay. So, during the time of industrial revolution, all these resources like coal, lignite, peat, petrol were utilized. Okay, in the industries, and also the railway lines were laid. So at that time, the utilization of the fossil fuel resources were at the peak. Before that, in the ancient times, how energy was met. That is, there was no electricity. Okay, uh, lamps were used to lit the rooms, okay, and other places, and there was no electric pump to lift the water. Okay, water you were used to lift manually from the wells. So you usually in the ancient times, energy was met basically by the muscular effect. Okay, but after the progress of industrial revolution, the energy was that is majorly the fossil fuel energy resources were used. Okay, at a very peak. Now, now at the present time, there has been already a tenfold growth in the energy consumption. Okay, so now it is projected that by 2050, that is in another 30 years or so, the energy what we are using now should be increased to more than 10 times. Okay, that will be the energy demand all over the world, because we are slowly moving towards the automation world. Okay, where there is no more manual energy required. So you see each and everywhere there is a the machines are getting automated. Okay, all those things. So because of this, what is happening, the energy demand is also increasing day and day. Okay, so therefore by 2050 the energy has to be increased. So how it is increased, how it can be increased, so that is the question. So right now we have only the conventional sources of energy where the world is relying on, you know that. That is, even though we are slowly moving towards the non-conventional sources like solar, wind, okay, but still we are heavily relying on the conventional source. And it is said that by another 50 years, the petrol and diesel resources will slowly deplete. Okay, it is estimated that our generation will see the depletion of this fossil fuel resources. But then after later, what we have to do, that is the question. Okay, so by that time we should be completely having the energy utilized from the non-conventional source. Okay, so therefore, uh, now we will discuss in detail about the different types of energy. Okay, there are like ma'am told, there is a renewable sources and non-renewable. So renewable sources are the one which gets renewed, which gets replenished from time to time. That is basically biomass, hydro, solar, wind, tidal, and geothermal. Okay, whereas the coal, oil, gas, the thermal power plants, and the nuclear resources are all the example of non-renewable resources. Okay, so now we will discuss about the fossil fuels, which are the non-renewable resources and also which are the conventional sources of energy. Okay, so here the fossil fuels are the ones which include coal, oil, gas, peat, and lignite. Okay, so how the fossil fuels are formed, that is the question. So fossil fuels are formed from the decomposed plant and animal matter, okay, which are found in the various strata below the earth's surface as coal, oil, and natural gas. Okay, so what happens is millions of years ago during the ice age and before pre-ice age, uh, the the natural resources like vegetation, trees, and forest, which got decomposed, and also the marine organisms and also other land organisms which were dead. Okay, they slowly got decomposed, and over the years they slowly got converted into the fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas. Okay, so the formation of the fossil fuels vary. For example, uh, you know where exactly the petrol and diesel resources are extracted. They are basically near the coast. Okay, so that is where the petrol and diesel resources are extracted. Okay, why near the coast is because near the coast the marine organisms will die and decompose. That marine organisms have turned into the diesel and petrol over the years. Okay, whereas in the interior part of the earth, okay, the many vegetation, so the forest which were there millions of years ago, they got decomposed and they have been turned into coal. Okay, so that's why you see the coal resources are found in the interior part of the land, not in the coast or not in the sea. Okay, so the petroleum and natural gases are found basically by the anaerobic decomposition of the remains of marine organisms and also phytoplankton and zooplankton, which are the aquatic plants. Okay, so therefore, over the geological time, this organic matter, okay, they got mixed with mud, they got buried, and under heavy pressure and heat, they got anaerobically converted okay, into a material called as kerogen. Okay, so kerogen is the first material formed out of this dead and decayed matter. So after this kerogen further under the heat and pressure gets converted into the liquid form known as the crude oil. Okay, which is what we use now, the petrol and the diesel resources. Okay, so the fossil fuels are of the great importance because they can be burned. Okay, and producing significance of a significant amount of energy per unit weight, these things which you know. Okay, so the commercial exploitation of the petrol, which was started from the late 18th century and the 19th century, that is after the industrial revolution which took place in the Europe, Rhine Valley. Okay, so the natural gas once flared off as an unneeded byproduct of petrol production is now considered as the very valuable resource. Okay, this is very important, which you have to keep in your mind, because about a century ago, natural gas was discarded. It was not used. Okay, which was a byproduct during the distillation. It was not used, but later on, we invented that natural gas can be used in cooking. Okay, and also in the transportation. Then it was utilized effectively. Okay, so the natural gas deposits are the main source of the element helium. All right. So the heavy crude oil, which is more viscous than the conventional crude oil, and the sands where bitumen is found mixed with the sand and clay, are becoming more important resource as a fuel. Okay. So all these things, that is oil shale and similar materials of sedimentary rocks containing kerogen. So here what explains is how chemically the kerogen gets converted into the petrol and diesel. Okay, which is now used in the combustion engines in the automobiles and also in the industries. All right, now if you consider the estimate of reserves of fossil fuels, so the fossil fuels, if you that is this is the estimate for 2005 and 6. Okay, now the coal is estimated to be around 9,97,748 million tons. Okay, oil is estimated to be about 1,119 billion barrels. I bet this has been reduced by now. Okay, the natural gas is estimated to be around 6,183 to 6,381 trillion cubic feet. Okay, so this is the estimate of the present resources, fossil fuel resources. Okay, this will be now decreased. So this data is the present data for 2015 onwards is not available. Okay, but you can get the idea of how much reserves that are present, that is coal, oil and natural gas. Okay, so this is the carbon dioxide variations in the atmosphere for over the decade. Okay, now you know what is the disadvantage of using the fossil fuels. That is, burning petrol and crude oil will result in the accumulation of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Okay, so more and more accumulation of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere will lead to what? Can anyone tell?
Pollution.
Yeah, pollution. What that term is called as?
Greenhouse effect.
Yes, very good. That is called as the greenhouse effect. Okay, means the temperature of the earth will rise very rapidly. Okay, which is called as the greenhouse effect. So therefore, if you see this slide, for over 2 centuries before, the carbon dioxide was well within the limit in the atmosphere. Okay, but after the industrial revolution, the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has severely increased. Okay, so because of the carbon dioxide accumulation and also the depletion of the forest cover all throughout the world, there is greenhouse effect. Okay, and the global temperature is increasing very enormously. Okay, right now you might have seen in the news that in Brazil and also in Australia, how due to the forest fire, forest fire, about 20% of the Amazon forest were gutted in fire, and also in Australia. Okay, so these forest, natural forests, act like the lung spaces of the earth. Okay, they are very vital in absorbing the carbon dioxide. But if these lung spaces, that is the natural forest, are removed, then it will be a very huge problem in carbon sequestration. Okay, carbon sequestration means it is the capacity to absorb the carbon dioxide by the natural vegetation and convert into oxygen. Okay, all the green cover cannot be turned as forest. Okay, now you see in many places there has been cultivation of teak and other commercial trees. So the trees like teak cannot absorb the carbon dioxide like what natural forest are capable of. Okay, so the natural forests are very vital for the earth. So the disadvantages of this petrol and diesel, okay, is the environmental hazard. So I told you the environmental hazard is the carbon dioxide, and also one thing is carbon dioxide is released, and the other thing is due to the unburnt fossil fuel, okay, gases, that is the sulfur, nitrogen. If once these are escaping out of the combustion chamber, then this poses a huge threat for human beings. Okay, if we absorb sulfur over a period of time, if we absorb a sulfur for the period of time, hey, mute man. So this sulfur and nitrogen, if we observe, if we human beings are exposed to it for a very long time, then we are prone to the chronic diseases. That's what Krishnamurti sir explained in the first beginning class, first unit. That is the dose response relationship. Okay, so we get exposed to a very short time, also we will be contracting fatal disease. And also if we are exposed to some sort of toxic gases for a very long time, even then we are getting fatal diseases. Okay, so right now that's what happening. Okay, whatever the respiratory diseases many are experiencing, okay, in many parts of the world, that is mainly due to this unburnt fossil fuel gases. Okay, especially in the cold regions. All right, and the next one is the rising prices. So rising prices is the one phenomenon, okay, which we will never be able to understand because it's not a transparent process. Okay, that is how petrol prices will fluctuate daily, even though the government say that it is a market controlled. Okay, so this market control is becoming like a mafia. Okay, because the fossil fuel resources are concentrated with few people, few wealthy organizations in the world. Okay, they are mainly controlling the fossil fuel prices. Okay, like in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, those are the ones which have about 80% of the world fossil fuel resources. So basically they control the prices. Okay, and also in 5 years or 6 years, many other European nations and also USA has entered into the oil business. Okay, because they discovered the shale oil reserves in the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, and even they too have entered into the market. That's why you see for about in 5 or 10 years, per barrel, the petrol prices have fallen to $60 or $70. Okay, earlier before 2014 or something, the per barrel, the petrol prices were around $200 per barrel. Okay, now per barrel is it's only $60 or $70. Okay, this is because many players are entering into the oil business, and because of this competition, each and everyone are making their prices low. Okay. So next one is the acid rain. That is now because of the industrial, sir, because of the industrial emissions. Okay, that is especially the sulfur dioxide. These are, even though the automobiles will uh, eject out uh, okay, small amounts of sulfur, the industries, okay, will expel large amount of the sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. Okay, so this sulfur dioxide, once it enters the higher atmosphere, it mixes with the water vapor and forms sulfuric acid. Okay, so this sulfuric acid will finally reach the earth through precipitation or rainfall, and this sulfuric acid mixed water will be having lower pH, means it will be acidic. Okay, so this acidic rain, once it touches the earth, and also it once it we are exposed, human beings are exposed, and once the old monuments are exposed, it will pose a damage for them. Okay, we will also experience skin diseases, and also once on the land, if this precipitation falls, then the land will become infertile because it turns into acidic. Okay, once the land turns acidic, certain fertilizers, if we apply, that won't be effective. Okay, so how exactly this acid rain is formed, how the chemical process takes place, okay, that is not been said even till now. Okay, that is not been explained even till now properly. Okay, all we know is due to this expel of sulfur dioxide and also nitrous oxide into the atmosphere, the acid rain forms. But how exactly the chemical reaction takes place in the upper atmosphere, that is not being explained accurately. Okay, by any organizations. All right. So the effect of human health. Finally, all these things will lead to the effect of human health. Okay, one is the environmental hazard, that is carbon dioxide inhalation, carbon monoxide inhalation, and sulfur and nitrous oxide inhalation can be fatal. Okay, due to the rising prices, what happens? There will be inflation in the economy, nation's economy, especially in the nations like us, because we are the nation who is having population of more than 1.2 billion, but the energy demand is very high, and we also are lacking the fossil fuel resources. We are highly dependent on the import of fossil fuel resources. Okay, so if the prices are raised, then it will impact our economy very deeply. It will lead to the inflation. Okay, so inflation will lead to the rise of essential commodities like vegetables, food grains. Okay, which becomes highly unaffordable to the people who are in BPL, that is below poverty line. Okay, so this combined will lead to severe effect on human beings, on the health of the human beings, as well as on the socio-economic condition of the human beings. Okay, and also there will be impact of the aquatic life by oil spill. Okay, you know that the crude oil sometimes is transferred from, mostly it is transferred through pipeline, but sometimes it is transferred through navigation through ships. Okay, sometimes the ships which will break in the middle of an ocean, okay, there will be an oil spill. So this oil spill, even though it's for a very short period of time, okay, so the marine organisms, once they get exposed to this, they will all lose their life. Okay, that's what happened in 2005. So there was an oil spill in Pacific Ocean, due to which the marine iguanas, a aquatic animal, about 60% of them lost their lives due to this oil spill. Okay, and also once the oil spill occurs, it's a huge headache to clear oil because it will be there in the sea forever. Okay, and also at that part become dangerous to transit because it is highly inflammable. So to clean the oil is a huge headache. Okay, even though now the sophisticated technologies have come to clean the oil spill, but still it's a huge headache. Okay, So you see the distribution of the world oil resources. You see in the Middle East, there is what is called as Gulf. How much oil resources are there? Whereas in the other parts of the world, how much oil resources are there? Okay, you can understand that in the Gulf, that is in the Middle East, the oil concentration is very high. About 80% of oil concentration of the entire world, crude oil resources of the entire world, is present in the Middle East. Okay. So here we talk about the coal. So the coal resources are estimated to be around 7.4 into 10 power of 12 million tons, which is equal to 4.7 into 10 power of 22 calories. Okay. So chemically, coal is a complex material. Okay. So the chemical formula for the coal is C100H85S21N21O9.5. Okay. So the coal can be classified into three different types basically. One is the anthracite, which is the purest and a very good quality of the coal. Second one is bituminous. Okay. Third one is the lignite, and fourth one is the insignificant peat. Okay, so these are the four types of coal. Okay, so anthracite is a purest and a good quality coal which will emit less sulfur. Okay, once burnt. But unfortunately, in our nation, we do not have anthracite coal. We have the bituminous coal. Okay, you know where coal resources are present in our nation?
Sir, neighborhood, sir.
Coal resources are found
Jharkhand.
vast, yes, found in vast amount in Jharkhand. That is Jaria coal mines. It's found in Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and also small amount is found in northeastern part of India. Okay, and India doesn't have a very good amount of anthracite coal. Okay, whereas in the nations like Russia, they have got a very good amount of anthracite coal. Okay, by burning anthracite coal, the less amount of sulfur is emitted, and also a high amount of energy is yielded due to the burning of anthracite. Okay, so the hazards of the fuel coal is it is a dirty fuel. Okay, it's termed as a dirty fuel because it is not very friendly to operate. Okay, because once you are exposed to coal, they will be exposed to this ash and all. Okay, so it's a very dirty fuel, and it also emits SO2 in a very large amount. That is especially bituminous coal and lignite coal emits SO2 in a very large amount. Okay, so once SO2 is absorbed by human beings and other animals, we will experience respiratory problems. We will also experience heart diseases. Okay, and all the frequent exposure to SO2 will be very fatal. Okay, so coal is much less convenient to use than the petroleum and natural gas. Okay, because since it's a solid, it's not a user friendly thing. Okay, unlike petrol and natural gas, because it's a liquid, we can be transported anywhere, anytime. But coal, unlike petroleum and natural gas, is less convenient and less user friendly. Okay, the combustion of the fuels to produce leads to air pollution. Okay, and also production of the solid waste, which is one of the major hazard. Okay, now you know where coal is used. Coal is used in the thermal power plants, and in our nation there are more than 15 or 20 thermal power plants located. In Karnataka there is a thermal power plant located at Raichur. Okay, so if air pollution is one thing, the next concern is the solid waste produced from the coal, because once the coal is burnt, ash is left, which is called as fly ash. Okay, and also pond ash is being left. So to dispose of the fly ash and pond ash is a very huge concern till 10 years or 15 years. But now this fly ash and pond ash have been incorporated in concrete production. Okay, because this fly ash will fly ash exhibit the properties which are very familiar to cement. Okay, they are also having cementitious property which will bind the material. So therefore, the fly ash is being used in cement production, and also pond ash is used in the concrete production, and that's how the solid waste is being disposed of. Okay, from the thermal power plants. Okay, so therefore, the extent to which the coal can be used depends upon the solution to various environmental problems. Okay, so one is including minimizing the environmental impact, reducing the ash and sulfur dioxide, conversion of coal to liquid and gaseous fuels, and removing ash from the sulfur from coal prior to the combustion. Okay. Now, if you see this slide, you will find where the coal resources are majorly concentrated. Okay, you see India is found in Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and also northeastern part. Okay, the major amount of coal is present in Russia and Siberia. Okay, and also the coal resources are present enormously in US and also in Mexico. Okay, and also in Alaska. If you see the map, you will get to know. Okay, so the petroleum and the natural gases. So this petroleum and natural gas was widely extracted after the post-industrial revolution. Okay, so petrol from the Latin word means petra means rock and oleum means oil. So it's in Latin it's called as the rock oil because it's basically extracted from the aquatic strata, all the aquatic rocks. Okay, so here the petroleum, which is highly inflammable mixture of hydrocarbons and of various molecular weights are present. Okay, so it is present in the beneath the earth's surface, and usually the petroleum is recovered mostly through oil drilling. So this petroleum is found both in marine, that is in the sea or ocean, and also it is present in the land. Okay, you can wonder how it is present both in sea as well as in the land, whereas the coal is present only in the land. How is this possible, you can wonder. Okay, this is because over the millions of years ago, there was a plate movement. Okay, right now what map is, it was not the same millions of years ago. That is, uh, India was separated from the Asia. Okay, Australia was joined with Russia. So late after the plate movements, what happened? Australia got separated as a separate continent. Okay, and India got joined to the Asian continent, that is Russia. Okay, so while joining, what happened? Uh, Tremendous amount of the aquatic resources and others got uplifted. Okay, so the boundary of Indian plate where it meets the Russian plate. Okay, so that boundary, once it collided, lot of sediments got uplifted, and that is what today is Himalayas. Okay, so Himalayas are basically the upliftment of the sediments due to the collision of Indian plate with the Russian plate. Okay, so this sediments consist of the aquatic origin. So that's why you see in the northeastern region, okay, and also near the Himalayas, you will find the petrol and diesel resources, because that's there, because earlier it was the sea which got uplifted. Okay, the aquatic sediments which got uplifted. Okay, so same thing is with Middle East also. Earlier those part, before the land joined, it was a sea, and finally once the land joined, all the marine resources which got uplifted, that has formed diesel. So that's why in the land in Iran, Iraq, the petrol and crude oil has been extracted. Okay, so it is the petroleum crude oil, once extracted through oil drilling, it will be distilled, where it is refined and separated into number of forms like diesel, kerosene, petrol, natural gas. Okay, so like that it will be separated, and paraffin wax, which is highly viscous. So therefore, these byproducts will find a lot of utilization. Okay. So you see, this is how the petrol resources are formed. So the aquatic organisms, the marine organisms, once they die, sand and silt deposit on them. Okay. Once sand and silt deposit on them, they will be subjected to huge amount of heat and pressure. So that makes them converted to fossil fuel. So once the fossil fuel is formed, that is being obtained through oil drilling. You know where in India the oil drilling is made. Okay, that is off the coast of Mumbai, Bombay High, where Reliance is extracting the oil through oil drilling. Okay, so this is the estimated resources of petroleum. You see, uh, the USA, United States, Russia, and Saudi Arabia. In 2008, how much resources were there? Russia were having a lot of resource. Russia is having a lot of natural gas resources. Okay, compared to petrol and diesel. So slowly, you see, by 2014, USA has got a lot of resources. How this is possible is USA started to explore the shale oil resources in the Atlantic coast. Okay, so once they discovered the resource, obviously they became at the giants in the petroleum market. Okay, so by 2014, US is also dominating as good as the Middle East nations like Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Iraq. Okay, you see, the oil refineries are present in various parts of India. The job of this oil refineries is to obtain the crude oil through the means of pipeline and also through ship. And once obtain the crude oil, you refine it through distillation process and separate out various parts of the petrol, that is petrol, diesel, and finally shift it to the petrol pumps or the diesel pumps. Okay, so in Lucknow, in Patna, in Jaipur, Gandhinagar, Chennai, Hyderabad, so these uh, refineries are present mostly in the coast because the pipelines are connected to the coast. Okay, and also the ship routes. Through ship routes it is easy to bring to the ports instead of transporting to the interior parts. Okay, so natural gas is also a very important gaseous fuel which is obtained from the understrata. Okay, so natural gas consists essentially a mixture of methane, ethane, propane, and butane, and other gases like CO2, hydrogen sulfide, and nitrogen, and other trace gases. Okay, but basically it contains alkanes, that is ethane, propane, and butane. So the natural gas containing mainly methane but not higher hydrocarbons is said to be lean or dry gas. Okay, so a natural gas containing mainly methane is said to be a dry gas. Okay, whereas if it contains appreciable amounts of protein, propane, butane, and other liquid hydrocarbons, it is called as the rich gas. Okay, so CNG or LNG, that is liquefied natural gas or compressed natural gas, also as a promising technology as an alternate fuel when compared to the natural gas, because that is liquefied natural gas means the gas, okay, which will be in form of vapor, will be compressed to form a liquid. Okay, so that technology is very important because finally in the liquid form if we obtain, then it becomes more user friendly. Okay, so liquefied petroleum gas, that is LPG, is a mixture of basically butane and propane only. Okay, which is stored under pressure. Okay, now to determine the leakage in gas, tetrahydrothiophane is used. Okay, which is a chemical compound. So this petroleum, so these are some details related to the petroleum. Okay, so the what is the chemical composition of petroleum? That is, it is basically hydrocarbons. Okay, and the mostly the molecules of alkanes, cycloalkanes, aromatic hydrocarbons are all present in petroleum. Okay, so you see these are the reserves of petroleum throughout the world.
ತಿಂದಿಲ್ಲ. ಎಣ್ಣೆ ಹಾಕೋದು ಯಾವಾಗ ಅಂದ್ರೆ 11 ಗಂಟೆ 12 ಗಂಟೆಗೆ. 11 ಗಂಟೆ 12 ಗಂಟೆಗಲ್ಲ, ಮಧ್ಯಾಹ್ನ ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ವಿ. ಅನ್ಮ್ಯೂಟ್ ಆಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು
So these are the concentration of petroleum. Okay. So dark red indicates the heavy concentration. Okay, light red indicates the less concentration. So in India, China, and other nations, the petroleum is hardly found. Whereas in US, Greenland, Gulf states of Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, in these states or nation, petroleum is found in vast amount. Okay. So I don't know why. See, in your class, many are misutilizing this Zoom platform. They are giving this Zoom link to some people outside the organizations who want to create ruckus or who want to create mess. This untoward incident is happening. If this continues, then you will lose the lecture, and you will lose some important points which can be discussed. Why you are doing this, I don't know. Even last class we faced the same problem. That is a few students, not I won't call them as students. How they behaved is very bad. These things, you can enjoy it at that moment, but in a long term, you will really repent it. Okay. Right attitude is required. So these are the petroleum and the hazards of petroleum resource, that is crude oil, is it's a very carcinogenic, highly toxic, cancer causing hydrocarbons are there. Okay. The benzene which is present in both crude oil and gasoline is said to cause leukemia in human beings. Okay. And oil spill which is a release of liquid petroleum into the environment, marine areas, okay, will form lot of problems to the marine organisms. And the waste oil which is containing the breakdown parts of, okay, so if once this is utilized in the garages, waste oil means it is having highly viscous, so it's being utilized in service automobile garages. It's used in servicing, like in lubrication, cleaning of the bearings. So once this waste oils is being utilized, they are discharged into the sewage treatment plants. So there, treating water which is mixed with this waste oil and all is a very difficult process, and sometimes it is not treated at all. It is left simply like that. Okay. So now this is a nuclear energy where ma'am discussed a few things about this. Okay. So nuclear energy, even though it is sustainable, it is very dangerous. Okay. Why it is dangerous? Because due to the nuclear hazard, it can be very fatal. Okay. So what happened in Chernobyl? That is some few years ago, where lakhs of students died. Okay. So in all the nuclear power plants, the energy is produced through the fission, not fusion. Okay, fission means the neutron or the alpha particle is bombarded to the target nucleus, that is uranium or thorium. So where the energy is being released. So this energy released is infinite, and it is controlled by using the control rods in the nuclear power plants. So in India, you see these much nuclear power plants are there. The recent addition is the one in Tamil Nadu. Okay. So these many nuclear power plants are there. So this is inside the nuclear power plant. Okay. So where you see control rods are used, this is where the nuclear reaction take place. So once the reaction takes place, enormous heat is produced. So through this heat, the steam is produced, which is being channelized to turbine. So that turbine rotates continuously, so generating the electricity. Okay. So to limit the heat or to control the heat, control rods and also the coolants are used. Okay. So the hazards of the nuclear power plant are they are radioactive waste or highly toxic for centuries. Okay. So usually how the radioactive waste are being dumped is they will be sealed in a lead container and they will be dumped in sea or they will be dumped in the deserts. Okay. Which is 100 feet deep or 200 feet deep. Usually that is being followed. Okay. But sometimes what happens, if there is no improper disposal, then that can pose a huge danger for aquatic as well as the land organisms. Okay. So the Chernobyl disaster, which occurred in 1986, is a grim reminder of what potential the nuclear plants have got. Okay. If it is not being handled properly. And other danger is the fission bomb or the atom bomb or nuclear bomb. Okay. If some nations, okay, which are irresponsible, if they acquire the nuclear technology, possibility is that they will make nuclear bombs and they will use it against each other on other nations. That is a problem. Okay. So this that's why you see there are many regulatory authorities like IAEA, International Atomic Energy Association. Okay. And the nuclear trade associations all there. So these things will regulate the transfer of technology. Okay. You see that's why the nations like Pakistan, North Korea have been denied the nuclear technology, and also Iran. Okay. So nuclear fission is the fusion of the uranium molecules to produce high energy. Okay. But the main disadvantage for the nuclear fusion is high amount of energy is required. Okay. High amount of energy is required to fuse the nuclear atoms. Okay. So for fusion to take place, high temperature is required, sufficient plasma density is required. Okay. So the plasma must be confined for an adequate time to allow fusion to occur. So this is about the nuclear fusion. So up to here, these are conventional resources. Okay. So the solar energy and all is a non-conventional resources. Okay. So we will end here and we will meet next Thursday for the class. The slides will be shared.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
You have any doubts, anyone?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll see you next week.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.